Was he the toughest matchup?
That's a grown man.
Yeah.
That's a grown man.
Yeah. Had a pretty good Thanksging Day against the Cowboys in 1998 as a rookie.
I sat there and watched it all.
You were banged up?
He murdered us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. Hey, we've left an empty chair, by the way, because one of the 10 receivers on the NFL 100 all-time team is getting ready to join us. I don't know, is that for Chris Carter?
We should bring in the guys that didn't make it, because they're going to be mad, and we had like a better program for that.
But the guy, he's ready to...
Oh, no, he's unbelievable.
He's great.
The guy sitting here is unbelievable. I grew up watching him. He was on my electric football set.
Oh, really?
He used to keep throwing him the ball.
The one when you turn it on, the players go all over the place?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He'll be ready to join us. Steve Smith Sr., he's kind of shy.
Steve Smith, yeah.
We'll see if he has an opinion. We'll see you soon.
All right, so those are the 8 men we've already revealed as the members of the wide receiver group on the all-time team tonight. 3 of them are still with us here, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, and Larry Fitzgerald. And we're about to introduce your final 2 teammates on the team as voted by the Blue Ribbon panel of experts that included you, sir, Bill Belichick. Steve Largent is the 9th member to be announced here on this program. The Seahawks legend played 14 years in the Pacific Northwest, caught passes in 177 straight games, and at the time of his retirement, he held the career records for receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns.
And that'll do it. A new NFL record for Steve Largent here in the Great Northwest. This place will erupt.
And also another number 80 of note on the team. What'd you think of Steve Largent?
Unbelievable. Not only a great football player, but just a great individual. And I remember when I went to Seattle, he walked up to me, he said, I want you to wear number 80. It just blew me away. And you can't say no to a legend. I took a lot of backlash because of that, but he wanted me to wear his jersey, but he was just that type of receiver.
NFL Films is going to showcase, in my mind, his talent. Everything was a different move. He was the guy, you could watch his eyes. Like, he would look back for the ball and get the guy to turn around, and then here comes the comeback route out of it. Every single thing was perfection. Probably the closest may have been Raymond Berry back in the day that, wasn't going to wow you with the athleticism, but he was going to get open because he had something creative that he had come up with and had practiced and practiced and practiced and was always open.
Well, that leaves one last spot on the wide receiver team, and that last spot goes to Indianapolis Colt Marvin Harrison, who played 13 seasons in Indianapolis, an 8-time Pro Bowler. He helped lead the Colts to a victory in Super Bowl 41, and of course teamed with Peyton Manning to form the most prolific quarterback-receiver tandem in the history of our league.
Peyton looks for the quick throw, lobs it in the corner to Marvin. The 86 touchdown pass from Manning to Marvin Harrison.
That breaks the record held by tied with Steve Young and Jerry Rice.
It was very difficult to vote for wide receivers on this in this project. It was so difficult. But here's what I said: as a defensive coach, as a head coach, if I double covered a guy every single time we played him, I'm putting him on a list. Okay, so that's you, and Marvin Harrison. Double coverage, we're getting beat by somebody else. Single coverage was really, and Manning knew it too. If you single covered him, he's going right to him.
Now a quick drop and a fade to Harrison, and Harrison is able to make the catch for the touchdown. One-on-one with Asante Samuel.
He looks out there. He had a run call. He checked out of the run, saw tight coverage, man-to-man on Marvin Harrison, and that's where he went.
If we were going to play the Colts or something like that, before warm-ups, they would spend like hours out there just going through the route tree. This was way before the actual game.
Before every game, Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison come out and they run the entire passing tree. These are the shorter ones, these are the middle ones, and this is a deep one. Then they finish up with this one. Yeah, that was the last one.
When I used to look at the chemistry between Peyton and Marvin, there's really one play that really stood out to me, and that was that stretch play that Peyton would show that ball to an outside run, pull it back. Marvin Harrison would go in there like he's blocking the safety. And I said to myself, every time Peyton Manning and them would show that stretch run with Edgerrin James pull it back out, you best believe it's Marvin Harrison going for a 50, 60-yarder plus.
Manning on 1st and 10 from his own 20. Gives it to Edgerrin, fakes to Edgerrin. Now look, he's got Marvin wide open. He throws it to him. He's got it to 40, 30, 20, cuts inside 10, 5, touchdown, 80 yards. Manning to Marvin Harrison.
Ike Taylor is in man-to-man coverage on Marvin Harrison. He's watching Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning gives that play-action fake, and that was enough for Marvin Harrison to get by Ike Taylor. And I'll tell you, if I was guarding Marvin Harrison, I would never look into the backfield. I would never watch Edgerrin James. I would never worry about the run.
That 141 catch season he had was
a lot of catches.
I mean, unbelievable. And he probably caught 40 of them on under routes. And you knew it was coming, and you just couldn't stop it. There was no route he could not run.
That's it for the wide receiver group. So the 10 are in. We've got one more coach to announce here on this show. We figured, why not with you right here, Jerry Rice. This man took the 49ers franchise to new heights with his West Coast offense. He helped propel the 49ers to 3 titles in a 10-year span, the legendary Bill Walsh.
He was not only a coach, he was like a father to me, and he took me under his wing. And he gave me an opportunity to just live a dream. And he could be your best friend. He could be your worst enemy. And he never let you felt like you had arrived. I had a game, a Monday night game against the Los Angeles Rams. I had over 10 catches, over 200-something yards, 3 touchdowns. And Bill called me up to his office, and I'm thinking, okay, he's going to call me up and pat me on my back. Said, great job. He called me up and he said, I want more from you.
What'd you think when, after that stat line, the coach called you in and said, I need more from you?
Yeah, you know what? I was very shocked, but I noticed that running up the stairs, too. He knew how to get everything out of his players.
The number one thing I always felt like preparing for Coach Walsh was the first 15 plays. His team knew those plays. They knew what 6 was, they knew what 7 was, they knew what 8 was, and they could execute them very quickly and with a high efficiency because they practiced them over and over. Defensively, if you went out there like we did in 1984, my daughter was born, we played the 49ers Monday Night Football. And, you know, that's when I really found out. That's when I really got drilled by him. He went out, he came in there and he scripted, you know, the first 15 plays, and we were down 21-0 in the middle of the first quarter.
Montana rolling out, making it look awfully easy.
Amanda was, you know, about to be born that night, and I'm thinking to myself, I might as well leave right now because, and so I barely made it for, you know, for her birth after the game, But that's the way it was with the 49ers. If they got you early on that script and they got you going and then you're like one play behind or one series behind, it could snowball and it could be just, you know, it could be brutal.
Any final thoughts on being a member of the NFL 100 team, Randy Moss?
We all have different upbringings, and small country town boy from Rand, West Virginia, being able to be on the National Football League's 100th all-time team, that's a blessing, man. I'm very honored to be here.
Larry?
Yeah, it's just, I'm humbled beyond belief. You know, you dream and hope to one day make it to the National Football League, but to be thought of in this light is something that you can never imagine.
Yeah, I think we compete against each other, but you can tell the respect here. And, you know, to be the part of the 100 all-time team, you know, it's something I'll never forget, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Well, we're honored to have you here. Thanks for you three being here. That'll wrap it up for this edition of the NFL 100 all-time team. 90 in the books. We've got 10 more guys to go. Next week, Bill Belichick, Chris Collinsworth, and I will be back with the quarterbacks to wrap up this 6-week journey.
Look who's grabbing a spot on the NFL 100 all-time team. 2 legendary coaches, 10 players, 20 amazing hands. We'll hand out plenty of accolades and wonder why certain receivers did not catch on. That's over the next 60 minutes on NFL Network. everybody, and welcome to the penultimate edition of the NFL 100 All-Time Team Reaction Show, and this one's going to get awfully juicy, I have a feeling. Of course, if you're talking about the best receivers in history, you have to ask one of the guys who covered them. And no one did it better than this man. Weeks ago, he was named to the NFL 100 All-Time Team. Former Defensive Player of the Year and Hall of Famer, prime time Deion Sanders. Joining Prime on the squad was the man who, when he retired in 1989, held all the big-time receiving records. Most catches, yards, touchdowns, yet another Hall of Famer. Does he have a big spike in him? He does, Steve Largent. Get away. Welcome to both of you. Prime, we talked to you a few weeks ago about being on the team. So Steve Largent is a guy who got cut by the Houston Oilers right out of the gate. Can you believe you're here?
No, I can't. I'm still scratching my head, number one, but pinching myself to make sure I really am.
How does it compare to, the call when you made it into the Hall of Fame?
Well, I think when you go in the Hall of Fame, you know that is something. That's the penultimate for a player. Yeah. But to be named in the 100 most whatever in the NFL is really special. But I think at the same time, you can make an argument for a lot of guys being on this list, and we'll do that tonight.
Yeah. What was it like when they were revealing the list of wide receivers? You were like, yeah, I saw that guy.
You was like, man, he's great, he's great, he's great.
Oh, no.
But these guys, I mean, growing up watching this man, he was a route connoisseur, a route specialist. He finessed you. He caught everything in his radius. And I grew up, I don't want to age you, but I grew up watching you, man, and emulating you with my electric football set. You were my guy, So, and I've met you a couple times, but to sit up here by you, I'm like a kid because I'm excited for what you brought to me as a kid in the game.
Oh, well, thank you, Deion. I appreciate that. And you, obviously. I got to watch you a lot. But, you could make the case for a lot of receivers that should be on this list that didn't make the list for whatever reason. So, I think it's great to be named on the 100 best of all time. But knowing that I would say there's a lot of guys that could be on this list.
Was there one moment in particular early in your career that kind of stood out where you said, okay, that was a special play for me? You had over 800 catches in your career.
There was a catch that I made over against the Raiders in the Kingdome, and that when I caught that ball, I went up over Lester Hayes and caught it and came down the end zone with the ball and head and everything hit in the end zone. I think that's when I thought, that's pretty. I mean, not a lot of people can do that.
Man, that's Lester. Y'all don't understand if you understand the magnitude of what he just said.
Yeah.
I grew up on Lester Hayes. He was a dog on the corner. Not only that, the whole Raiders secondary was second to none.
Mike Haynes.
Arguably the best in the game at that point in time. Yeah. And you go up in a home game and over Lester for 6. Man.
How much stickum did you end up with on your hands in Jersey after that one? That's what I want to know.
By that time, it was illegal, but Lester did wear a lot of stickum when he could.
All right, so obviously this is the second to last show, and a lot of people have been griping on Twitter and social media about why'd you pick this guy and why not that person. So why don't we go right to the source? One of the 26th person on the Blue Ribbon panel, our own Judy Batista from NFL Media. All right, Judy, I look at this and I say the wide receivers so far out of the 5 shows we've done, this had to be the toughest group to select, right?
They were all really tough to select. This was extremely difficult to select because, as you guys just were saying there in the studio, a ton of people could have made this list. I spent the most time internally thinking about Terrell Owens. I suspect a lot of fans out there will be wondering why he didn't make the list. He's 3rd in receiving touchdowns, 3rd in career yardage. When he retired, he was 2nd in both of those categories behind Jerry Rice, who was obviously a no-brainer selection. He had that heroic performance in the Super Bowl. He had that great 3-year stretch in the early 2000s. So I thought he would have been a worthy member if he had made it. Honestly, there were just so many other players to get on the list. That's why I think he didn't get on it.
Okay. All right, Judy, hold tight for a second. Are you guys surprised T.O. did not make it?
I want to ask her, why didn't he make the list?
Okay. Judy?
Why didn't you vote for T.O. if you have all those statistics and he was that guy? I covered this guy, and he was one of the guys that can score from anywhere on the field, and that presented a challenge to me. So why didn't you vote for him on that list?
Well, because I think, as you guys know, the mandate for this was to choose a team that was representative of the whole 100 years of the NFL. So that meant all players, and there simply were not enough slots. That was the case at every position, I think, that we would come up against. There just are not enough slots for as many great players as there were. And as great as Terrell Owens is, and as impressive as his performances were, there simply were not enough spots. Like, I guess I would say this: who would you take off the list to get him on it?
I could start. I could grab that one. I'm not going to start by saying who you would take off the list, but when you sit up here and declare a man was second in this, he was third in this, you're going with statistics. If you're going to go by identifying statistics, he has to be on the list, unless you're talking about something else. The thing that I love about T.O. is, regardless of what uniform he put on, his game was the same.
Yeah.
His game was the same. There's a lot of people amongst the NFL right now that when they change uniforms, everything it declined.
Is that the way you saw it, Steve?
Yeah, I did too. I really thought Terrell Owens is an exemplary receiver. Now, forget all the stuff that happens off the field and all that stuff. That wasn't what we were voting on.
Right.
We were voting on the best receiver. And in my mind, he has to be one of the best receivers.
Yeah, Judy, in your defense, and all the people on the Blue Ribbon panel, I think, is that when you look at the stats, and we're up here with the guy who led in catches when he retired 30 years ago, okay? You are currently 30th now in catches. Yeah. Okay, so we can't just take the top 10 guys in terms of...
Are you trying to make me cry?
Right.
I'm not. I'm saying
okay.
Maybe happy tears, though. Happy tears.
You're saying that differently. In his time, his stats substantiated who he was.
Right.
In T.O.'s era, his stats substantiated who he was and who he is right now.
But as Judy said, right, Judy, you said you got to take somebody off in order to put somebody on, and it's just too difficult when you're talking about a century.
But we're saying, why would you have to take somebody off and he should already be on?
10 spots.
But he should already be on. That's what I'm saying.
Judy?
Why would you have to take somebody off and he should already be on?
Judy?
Well, what I would say is this was the challenge at every position, is you were comparing players across eras, right? And that's difficult to do, particularly at wide receiver, one of the most difficult because of how the game has changed, how the rules have changed to favor the passing game. So you can't just look at statistics. Yes, he was a dominant receiver, and certainly if you look at his statistics, the fact that he retired behind only Jerry Rice in those categories is impressive, but he was playing in a pass-heavy era, so you had to take that into account when you were comparing him, for instance, to guys like Crazy Legs Hirsch, Don Hudson. That was the challenge at all positions. I think wide receiver was one of the most difficult because of how dramatically the game has changed.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question about it.
I would just say this. I hear what she's saying, and I acknowledge that that's probably the case, but the truth is, it was what happened to T.O. off the field that is the reason why he's not on this list.
I love you, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the truth.
Because you keep
there's
it
no
at 100.
reason, there's no
like
reason
that.
for him not to be on this list with the statistics that he has and the type of team player he was. He should be on the list.
Very, very interesting. Judy Battista, we'll check in with you a little bit later for your opinion on why Larry Fitzgerald became the second active player to make the top 100 all-time team. Thanks very much for the insight. Good work. So T.O. didn't make it. His Hall of Fame classmate Randy Moss did. Deion on if the freak was the biggest mismatch in the sport, and what did Steve Largent most admire about him? Maybe Randy's way with words.
Tickle me, I like that.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Honest opinion.
Was Jerry Rice one of your receiving heroes growing up, or the receiving hero?
That's a number of guys, though, the receiving heroes. Steve Largent is one of them. I grew up in Los Angeles, grew up here in Los Angeles. My grandfather was a football fan, and he loved the Oakland Raiders, and I loved the 49ers. And he always told me, he said, listen, if you want to play football, you got to play this game tough. You ain't gonna make it playing it soft. So you got to play it tough. And I always remember that. I always remember that. And my grandfather built in me a lot of things. And he always showed me examples of what my grandpa believed were tough men. And, you know, growing up in Los Angeles, wanting to be a DB, you know, I wore the headband on the neck like Prime. but I realized that corner at a young age. Nah, when you 5'7" playing corner and a running back is coming across on the toss, 6'1", woo, you know, it wasn't financial then, but it was financial. I made a financial decision.
It's a business decision.
And so I did that. But one of the cool things is when I was 8 years old, my grandmother gave me a blanket, a 49ers blanket. And that blanket to this day sits at my house. It's traveled with me everywhere, through college and the NFL. Now when we're at home at the house, we snuggle up in that blanket. That blanket is roughly about 30-something years old.
Wow.
And my kids know whose blanket it is. It's Pop's blanket, but it's our blanket. It's something that we believe in. And being a Carolina Panther, Baltimore Raven, those were my employers. I am a 49ers fan. And I grew up a 49ers fan, and I had that 21 jersey when Prime was there, Jerry Rice jersey, and I also had a J.J. Stokes jersey.
J.J. Stokes.
You're the one. We found him. Hey, Prime, so you went against Jerry.
Yep.
First 5 years of your career.
Oh, yeah, in Atlanta.
And then you get to San Francisco in '94.
And just the build up to the practice, because I practiced like a dog. Like, I practiced like it was a game. I didn't allow it to sit well with you having the luxury of watching film the next day of you going at me and beating me in practice. So everybody was just waiting for this and the anticipation of us going against each other, and we went at it, man. We went at it every day in practice, and it made us better. That year, I was Defensive Player of the Year, and I attribute that to Jerry, Steve Young, and those type of guys. One thing, and Jerry was phenomenal. First of all, Jerry was probably the most in-shape receiver I've ever played against. Because these guys know if you bump and run, man, that's a lot. You got to get off a jam. You got to do this. You got to do this, even to get in your route. And a guy that has a little physicality could wear you down. I couldn't wear Jerry down, man. Jerry could run like a deer all game long. And he was one of the few that I could bump all game that he didn't wear down.
Now, you preceded his career, Steve.
I did. Well, actually, I played, I think my last year, next to last year, was Jerry's first year in San Francisco.
Yeah, no, so he got there in '85, but what I'm saying is you got on the scene before he did, and then he didn't become Jerry Rice until, like, year 3.
Yeah.
Like his first few years, he even admitted he was dropping balls. Yeah. He was fumbling and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm talking about the Jerry Rice. When did you first start hearing about the Jerry Rice we became
Well, when
familiar
he was
with?
a first-round draft choice, we looked at him. We watched him a lot on film and saw he's kind of struggling. But you could just see it was all there, and it was about to explode on the NFL, and that's exactly what happened. But you could see he had all the tools he needed to be a great player. It just took him a little bit of time to get used to being who he was.
One of the cool things with me that when I was playing, one of the things that I noticed, I learned how to run a comeback from Jerry. Watching the film now, I'm old and I'm dated because my hairline is gone.
We could bring you back.
I know.
We'll bring you back, man.
Anyway,
bring you back.
and so I remember Ricky Prohl was a teammate, became one of my coaches, and he was always telling me, if you want to learn how to improve, if you want to update your database, because they will get rid of the new customer will always get the new shiny toy. However, if you update your database, they won't throw out the old beat up jalopy. They will just give you more space. And so I learned watching film with him, and I learned when I was pretty fast. However, I learned how to run a comeback. And that started to become, when you're a fast guy, Prime will tell you, playing a wide receiver, a fast guy, their go-to route is what, Prime? A go. Man, I learned how to run a go route, a comeback route, where watching Jerry, how he set people up, using the different alignments. Jerry, the reason why Jerry will never be outdone is because you have to have a standard to be considered the next. And Jerry, set that standard. Everybody else next to him are just next. They're coming. But that's the standard. He's the GOAT. He is the standard. And if you try to act like you're going to surpass him, you can't surpass if he's a standard.
You know, everybody remembers him, obviously, as a Niner and as a Raider. He played in the Super Bowl with them as well. But what about as a Seattle Seahawk? What happened up there?
I remember when I went to Seattle, he walked up to me, he said, I want you to wear number 80. It just blew me away. And you can't say no to a legend. I took a lot of backlash because of that, but he wanted me to wear his jersey, but he was just that type of receiver.
Are we close on that story?
That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. No, yeah, that's not exactly how it happened. But, we'll leave it at that.
Give him the 25 seconds.
Hey, we got time.
Well, the general manager at the time, and I won't say who it was, told me that Jerry wanted to wear my jersey, and if I would let him.
It had been retired.
Yeah. He actually called me first. He said, Jerry wants to wear your jersey, but we're not going to let him unless you say it's okay. And I thought, God, I can't say no to Jerry Rice.
Why can't you? Yes, you can.
Well,
you Steve Largent,
I could have, but then he goes to Jerry and goes, hey, Jerry, I just talked to Steve, and he wants you to wear his jersey.
Right.
And so he did. But it was, he kind of conned both of us.
A retired jersey should never come out of retirement.
Well, that's right.
I don't care who it is.
Yeah, you shouldn't even ask.
Shouldn't even ask.
Yeah. It's a good one. All right, still ahead. Imagine starting Jerry Rice on one side for the all-time team and Randy Moss on the other. What did our panelists appreciate most about the Moss Man? We'll answer that as we get freakish next.
I never had a hamstring problem because I was not fast like this guy.
Small country town boy from Rand, West Virginia, being able to be on the National Football League's 100th all-time team, that's a blessing, man. I'm very honored to be here.
Single season record 23 receiving touchdowns in 2007. The freak on the NFL 100 all-time team. Prime, you had a chance to go against him. Was he the toughest matchup?
Let me tell you something. This is, first of all, my fishing buddy and dear friend. This guy here changed the game in every aspect of changing the game. The week playing against Randy Moss, your defensive coordinators would go bald because they're telling you don't understand how fast this guy is. You're on cover two after cover two after cover two. The safeties are so far back that if he gets off the jam, beats one, and catches the slant, he's out of there. Yeah. It was no way to defend this guy. And I was playing against Randy with a blown hamstring right here. You can see I'm 100 yards off. I know they're just going to throw the ball deep, and it's going to be a jump ball. And I couldn't even bend my leg. So then they say, okay, he's going to play off. Let us go up there and make him come up and make the tackle. And Randy was a freak of nature. He had great hands. He could run every route, but the deep ball was everything. When he throw that hand up,
it's over.
It's over. And Randy felt like there's no one in the NFL could run with him and play with him. That's the way he thought about the game.
Because no one could.
And no one could.
Yeah.
This guy changed the game of football.
So when he broke in, you were in college, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in 98.
Yes.
So were you watching and you were like...
98?
He broke in 98. You came in 2001, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just graduated high school.
Okay. So you were probably thinking, man, that guy, he is changing the game. As you were
you see Randy. Even now when I see Randy, I'm amazed. He's in Charlotte where I am, and he works out and does all that stuff. He's still working out. He worked out his son. We had an opportunity a couple of years ago to work out with each other. He's a freak of nature. He's remarkable, and his name says it all. When you get mossed,
yeah,
right, and he used to moss people. He was for a receiver. Jerry, Randy, T.O. There were guys, Steve. There were guys that when you played by yourself in the backyard, you were mimicking their moves. You were mimicking their catches. Not everybody has been that way, but those guys, including yourself, have been those guys. If you want to play wide receiver, those are the guys you mimic.
Steve Largent, what did you admire most about Randy Moss when you saw him?
I didn't get to know Randy until he was inducted in the Hall of Fame. And I had one impression of Randy, and then I met him, and it just totally blew the impression that I had of him out of the water, because he was the nicest, most humble, hardworking, great guy that I've ever met. He really is just a wonderful human being. And not only that, he's a great football player. And there's no question about that.
You know, I thought one of the more interesting conversations they had when they revealed the wide receivers on the show that preceded us was talking about going across the middle. Give a listen here.
When the ball was in the air, I was so focused on the ball. If I caught the ball, I knew that I could brace myself and take the hit. But the most important thing, it was making that catch for my teammates and to keep the chains moving.
You know, I looked at it throughout the course of my career of that game film on Monday. You know, you know that game film on Monday where that play you're talking about, Coach, is going to separate the men from the boys. And I could always just hear the veterans, you know, like Randall McDaniel, all the older guys of just talking about, oh, you wussy, oh, stay up. So for me, being a wide receiver, of knowing that I was going to take that hit, in the back of my mind, I always thought about that Monday film study of all those men sitting in that room. Either you're going to boo me or you're going to praise me.
Is that the way you saw it, Steve Largent?
Well, you know, what I knew was I was going to get hit whether I caught the ball or not, so you might as well catch it. That was always my philosophy when I played. And I did get hit, but most of the time I caught the ball. And that was at least some, you know, I could get hurt when I caught the ball, but I caught the ball. And that goes down the stat sheet, so that's a good thing.
Were there certain guys, though, that you had to be leery of out there?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, I can think of a lot of guys that you had to watch yourself.
I mean, you played against Ronnie Lott.
Ronnie Lott was
Jack Tatum was in there.
Yeah, Jack Tatum would be one of the guys you need to watch out for. Yeah, there was a lot of guys I played against that could really, you know, put a blow on you.
Well, Steve Smith, why are they hesitant to go across the middle and other guys are willing? Participants?
Well, you just got to decide how you're going to. I always looked at it as you're going to get the smell of salt either with the ball or without the ball. You have that opportunity in that decision. Now, for me, I always looked at the safety, linebacker, and corner. Now, when Steve and Deion played, it was a different game. They had guys out there that you can hand fight all the time. So for me, I always believe, you know, it's a fist fight in the phone booth. And so in that fist fight in the phone booth, it ain't a lot of room to move. So you got to hit them before they hit you. That's why I always love getting into it in a run game as well. Because a guy can hit you on a pass play. But oh, yeah, when that run play comes on. And I knew, looking at that safety, oh, that run play is going to come. And I'm not going to pass up this opportunity to give it to you the same way you gave it to me. And I loved it. And that's the difference between the game today a little bit, where you can play dead and get a penalty. Back then, play dead if you want to. They're going to roll you out, you know, stop the game and put in another guy.
Most everyone that's on this list at receiver, we knew as defensive backs, these guys are dogs. It was none soft about none of these guys mentioned on this list.
And there were a few guys on this list who could have played defensive back as well. Maybe even one guy that's joined us up here on the panel. I don't know. I remember one game when Seattle was taking on Denver, and I believe Mike Harden picked this off. And Steve Largent, take us through the rest.
Well, people ask me all the time if I knew who that was that intercepted that ball.
Called fumble. And a called fumble.
And he recovered it.
Yeah.
He was mad, too, though.
Yeah, I was mad because he had hit me the same way in Denver and knocked me out of the game.
You know, nowadays you'd have been out. You would have got a hefty fine, right?
Well, I didn't hit him with my helmet. I hit him with my shoulder.
Yeah.
So, but I know it's probably...
it's still wrong.
Yeah.
The shoulder, you'd have been okay.
They'll find something wrong. Blindside.
Blindside,
defenseless runner. He's not a receiver. Defenseless runner.
See, that's why I couldn't play anymore, because I hit
sure glad it wasn't that way when I played.
Exactly.
All right, Steve Smith, you are dismissed.
Steve get to go home?
He can get to go home. He gets to watch the rest of the show from behind the cameras. But good job tonight, man.
I'm going to tell you right now, I ain't watching nothing after I'm leaving.
You stop that right
now.
Deion Sanders, you get to hang out.
See you later. I'm leaving on air.
Don't go, man.
Stop holding me.
That's all right, because you know what? We're going to give the coaches their due as well.
Deuces.
Don't go, Steve.
There are 10 that made the list. The final 2 announced on Friday. The genius, Bill Walsh, led San Francisco to 3 Super Bowl championships, and the Don of coaching, literally, Don Shula, 347 all-time wins, and we are fortunate enough to be joined by one of his sons, Mike Shula. He is the offensive coordinator of the New York Giants. And so, Mike, congratulations to you and your family. What is going through, I guess, emotionally for you and the rest of your family as your father makes this awesome list?
Yeah, well, it's exciting, and it's exciting for my dad. And, you know, just growing up, one of 5 children and being the youngest, and recognizing how much work he put into it all the time and the ups and the downs, and now realizing it as a coach, all that you go through. We lived and died with the wins and losses, and it was we were proud to be Shula, but mainly because of the way he raised us, he and my mom.
Mike, you were literally born into the game of football, so I'm curious, is there one story that you remember from as a kid, just being around the game, that was so special to you?
Well, there's actually a lot of stories. I love the time spent with my father at training camp. Dave got to go through it before I did, but just, the bond that we had. I was his roommate. The stories throughout with all the players, especially when I first started with the guys that were there during those Super Bowl teams. Now, I was really young then. Dave knew those guys better than I did, but just, I think back, as people have asked me in the past, what were some of the things that you can remember of the reasons why those teams were so successful? And I just think that they had really smart players, and they were leaders in their own sense, and they always seemed to be kind of one step ahead of everybody else. But my dad never he communicated very well. If there was any issues ever, he always brought them to the forefront, hit them right in the mouth, and any kind of a problem, and got it handled right then. And I think the players just kind of took that lead and ran with it.
Mike, congratulations to you, your father, and the entire Shula family, and happy holidays. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks. It's good being with you.
Well, Larry Fitzgerald, he is the...
Talk about that incredible playoff run in 2008 and his performance then. But he's had 16 seasons of top level production and performance. And let's be honest, he hasn't always had top flight quarterbacking help. So he gets a little bit extra there for that. It's hard to evaluate current players. So when you ask, are there other active players right now? It's really hard to evaluate mid-career players because you want to be able to see the whole career in front of you. I'll tell you, in the meetings, at one point we were talking about, now this voting was done 2 seasons ago, so before the 2018 season. And in one of the meetings we were talking about what a great receiver Antonio Brown was, shoo-in to be a Hall of Famer when he's done. Well, a lot's happened since then. I don't know if you'd say that right now. And you could say that about players at other positions, too. It's very difficult to evaluate active players.
Real quickly, in 15 seconds, were you close to voting for Antonio Brown on this team?
No.
Okay. Just wanted to get that out of you. Thank you. We did have another one of your colleagues, Peter King, who was a member of the Blue Ribbon panel. He joined us in studio last week, and he talked about the formation of the team as well. Give a listen.
In my opinion, there's no running back on this list from the last 15 years in the NFL. In my opinion, that's a mistake. In my opinion, I think it's bad that J.J. Watt is not on this team. J.J. Watt, 3 out of 4 years was Defensive Player of the Year. And the 4th year, he was very close to making it over Luke Kuechly, and Kuechly won it. I mean, that's something that Reggie White didn't do. And so I just look at this and I said, look, I want to honor history. I love football history. I think that if anything I've seen over the first few shows, we might have neglected a few of the modern players for the older players.
Do you agree with Peter?
In part. I think one of the challenges here was definitely that there was not going to be a separate team for the golden era players, that the league wanted this to be one team encompassing all 100 years. So obviously, if you're going to have a team that's representative of that, there are going to be some slots for older players. Having said that, look, we're all fascinated by the players that we watch now, right? We're dazzled by them. But the fact of the matter is it's difficult to judge current players because you can't see how their careers are going to end. In the case of J.J. Watt, agreed, dominant. But at the time that we were voting, he was coming off 2 very, very injury-shortened seasons. So you didn't know what was going to happen after that. You didn't know if his career was going to be over. I would wager that all of us on the panel gave very serious thought to J.J. Watt, but that was a concern. Would he ever play again? I also think, for instance, this underscores how dominant a player like Rob Gronkowski was. We only picked 5 tight ends. He was one of them, and at the time we were voting, we had no idea he was about to retire. So that underscores how difficult it is to judge current players when they're mid-career versus players that we've had lots of time and distance to take a step back from and say, okay, this is where their career stands.
So just when I'm scoring at home, you voted yes for Gronk, no for J.J. Watt? Is that the way I'm interpreting this?
I voted yes for Gronk.
And why is because Fred was a technician. I remember going to an
all-time team and just found out Steve Largent got played, I got played. I had no intent on wearing his jersey when I went to Seattle. He's a legend, and I would never cross that line. So sorry about that. I guess we got played by management. But have so much respect for you, and on the football field and off the football field, Steve Largent, you were the man.
Jerry looks really comfortable in there. He does. Jerry, you look real comfortable in there, man. You living good, man.
Somebody could corroborate your story, so there we go.
Yeah, that's right. Jerry's been a friend for a long time, and he's a great guy and a great player, obviously, and I have a lot of respect for him.
Steve Largent, congratulations on making the squad. Hope you had fun over the last hour. Did you ever get a hole-in-one playing with the president, like Larry
Not
Fitzgerald?
playing with the I've had a hole-in-one, but I'm not playing with the president.
Okay. Well, I figure in 8 years in Congress, you might have had a shot at it. You never know. Brian, as always, congratulations on making the team. As next week, we reveal the 10 quarterbacks on the NFL 100 all-time team. We'll see you next Friday here on NFL Network.
Jerry Rice is one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences that at the end of all of the conversation and all of the thrills and everything else, you still end up asking yourself, how can this be possible? This is one of those situations like Michael Jordan and Albert Einstein and John Coltrane, Jerry Rice. They're really all the same guy, and nobody to this day has figured out who any of them really are. We know what we see.
And what a way to break it.
We believe we understand what they have achieved.
He owns just about every receiving record on earth.
I look at Jerry Rice, and I am still in wonder. But I ask myself to this day, who is he really?
You're going to be a football player when you grow up.
Today is the best day of your life. Believe it. He might be the finest quarterback produced in the last